Welcome to Huddle Up with Matias Bueno. Today, our guest, all the way from Yahoo Sports Canada, the man, the myth, the legend, the pop culture wizard. He's done so many amazing interviews, and he is absolutely hilarious when you get to vibe with the energy of a person that is deep into the obscurity of Toronto Raptors lore. It is Ben Carlos. Ben, thanks for being on the show today, buddy. I'm really glad to talk to you.
That was probably one of the best intros I've ever heard. Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
As we were talking, as we could have had a pre-podcast, post-podcast, like an entire series based on our conversation before we started recording here. You are someone who is very good at being deep into the lore of a team that has struggled through most of its franchise history, the Raptors. I see you've got the Vince Carter, you got the DeRozan jersey in the back. Of course, also you're paying respects to the Black Mamba with the classic late 2000s Kobe Bryant jersey. But being someone who's from Toronto and loves the Raptors, I need to know, how crazy is it to consume the fact that a team you once watched and thought it was a pie in the sky to win a championship now have the standard of competing for first in the East? Because that to me is something that blows my mind so much that I actually believed when the Raptors won the finals that it was fake. Someone was pranking me.
Man, I still can't believe it to this day. When you're growing up with such awful Raptors teams, and the Raptors are essentially a laughing stock, and then let's put it frankly, you got, like, when I was in elementary school, I got laughed at for being a Raptors fan. I mean, screw y'all were bandwagon Lakers and Celtics fans, so y'all can jump off a bridge. But the Raptors are always a joke. So seeing them and the culture shift with the whole We the North era and Masai and everything that they've established in Toronto, it's so surreal that the Raptors have a new standard for excellence now. Because before, it used to be a thing where, we hang up a division championship banners and we'd pat ourselves on the back like, oh man, we got ourselves a division championship. Now it's just like, yo, we're going for actual championships now. So as a Raptors fan, especially if you've been one since for that long, even for people who've been since 1995, it's very rewarding for sure.
When you look at some of the Raptors teams that you had to watch, you mentioned what you started back in 2003 in LeBron's rookie season, the famous future Hall of Fame class from 2003 with Melo as well as Chris Bosh. Who are some of your favorite Raptors once Vince Carter left? Because people talk about the love of Chris Bosh, and I'm sure that he might be included in a list of players that you enjoyed watching. But the grasping for straws with choosing between a Sonny Weems, let's say, and a James Johnson, which is still on the better half of the Raptors' trajectory after Vince Carter left and then after Bosh left, it really doesn't seem... It seems like weird in retrospect. Did you have a lot of guys that you really pined for after Vince left? Or was it just kind of like, I hope the team does well and Bosh is great and that's kind of it?
Oh no, for sure. I loved all the players, but even though we weren't the best team, when you become a fan of a team, you fall in love with like the players who are playing, regardless of how well they actually perform on the court. Before Vince Carter, Antonio Davis, Jerome Williams, Alvin Williams, loved all those guys. I guess post Vince Carter, Jalen Rose, Mo Pete, scrambling my brain. I guess if we move a little bit further, like Anthony Parker. Not gonna lie, I did at a point in time believe that Andrea Bargnani was the next Dirk Nowitzki.
Didn't we
Obviously, that didn't really work out too well, but it's all good. It's all good. But yeah, when you have a team that isn't that established, you kind of gravitate towards the players that do play for you. So then when they do perform well and they show their loyalty, when you guys do succeed, it's super fulfilling. I remember I'll to this day hold, this might be a hot take, but I think that the Raptors fans during the 2007 playoff runs, like the atmosphere, the crowd arena, probably on par with the finals in terms of how the atmosphere was. Because like, obviously Raptors fans are crazy, but there's something about that first playoff run in 2007 with Chris Bosh, TJ Ford, Jose Calderon, where the fans are just super into it. Like everyone, the crowd was, it's like a sea of red, sea of white. You don't see that in Scotiabank Arena anymore because everyone's too stuck up to actually put on the t-shirts. But when they do it well, it looks so cool and the whole crowd's in unison. But in terms of noise, it's still, yeah, they're still okay. But I don't know. There was, I forget which series it was. I'm not sure if it was the Nets or the Magic, where the entire arena started Jose, 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 Jose. Like they started Jose Calderon chant. And like you don't see that with our fans anymore. That goes to show just how crazy it felt. It felt like a soccer. It felt like a soccer arena chant. But yeah.
I think it was 0809 actually, because I remember that was the first or one of the first playoff series I watched. So 7-08 was also against the Magic, wasn't it? I think it was, they played back to back against the Magic.
06-07, I think was the Nets, and then 07-08 was the Magic because we both like didn't make it out of the first round then.
Yeah, because that was just like wow, like that play, like seeing the Raptors in the playoffs seemed miraculous at that point. And I feel like maybe part of the reasoning behind your take is the fact that they hadn't been to the playoffs since they had Vince Carter, and also because the fact that it's not that they didn't make the playoffs, but they were really bad.
Yeah,
like allowing Kobe to be the second all time for points in a game bad with Jalen Rose, and Jalen Rose wasn't even that bad either. Just the fact that the whole Raptors team was just, I don't know, they just weren't good, and the fact that they were able to make it back, I think, was a miracle in and of itself in the eyes of the fans, which is why probably, you know, maybe people would disagree, or people who don't even have memories or didn't even follow the Raptors back then have no basis for comparison. But I could see how you would say that without it being ludicrous.
Yeah, for sure.
What is your favorite memory from watching a Raptors game live? Because I'm not sure if went to any of the games in 2019, but live, I'm sure you probably had some interesting experiences.
So probably I'll have to sum it all up to one season, and that's 2018-19 season, of course. Mainly because I was actually working for the Raptors then. I was part of their game crew, so we were the ones like pumping up the fans, throwing t-shirts, getting the crowd hyped up. And to this day, the greatest moment from that was being in the arena when Kawhi hit the shot, because I've never in my wildest dreams did it feel like time stopped. Like when that ball went up in the air and the bounce, like it felt like everything was just in slow-mo. And so, I remember I got in trouble because we're not allowed to have our phones on us when we're at work. It was just a euphoric moment that I just pulled it out and I took a video selfie. I was like, let's go. And then I posted it on my Instagram, and then my boss saw it and I got in trouble. But to this day, I wouldn't change it. I'd still do it again.
I think the saying goes, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission.
Yes, it exactly is.
You said you worked with the Raptors, and then you eventually now have moved up to working with Yahoo Sports. And as someone you love the Raptors and creating content, what was the experience like working with the Raptors, being someone who had followed the team for so long?
It was surreal, man, because that job I got by complete accident. I was supposed to go to film school in Chicago back in 2017, but my visa got denied. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? And then I remember looking on Facebook and I saw an ad for the job, and I was like, okay, this sounds fun. And then, went through the whole job process, and then I got it, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Cause I went from being a fan of the team to actually working for the team. So yeah, it's just, it's definitely a blessing. And in terms of all the jobs I've ever worked, that's easily by far my favorite one. And I still consider the people I work with from there like family. And it's just when you're united by something so strong, like we the North, and the only Canadian basketball team in the NBA, you develop a strong core group of people who are very passionate.
Yeah, there's nothing that can break the bond of people, like when you're a part of a championship team, or when you're a part of an organization in Canada, being the only team that is from Canada in the entire league. And you have also been known to have had great opportunities to interview former Raptors, people involved in the organization. You've been able to interview Gary Trent Sr., Chuck Swirsky, Jerome Williams, Mugsy Bogues as well. Pulling out the Rolodex of the NBA 2K1 roster of the Raptors and brings me back to my days playing that game on Sega Dreamcast as a kid.
Oh, man.
And they do hold a very special place in the hearts of Raptors fans, maybe if they weren't all-stars or NBA champions. So I need to know, let's knock it off the list here. What was the best thing you enjoyed about interviewing Mugsy Bogues? Because I think that would be super.
Oh,
fun.
man. Probably just learning. And I guess this is kind of a cop-out answer because it kind of applies to everyone, but just finding out his story, right? You know, as we discussed before, I do my due diligence when it comes to researching my each former Raptor guest, whoever I interview, and just learning everything about Mugsy. Like, you know, when we didn't bring this up in the interview, but at the age of 5, he got shot with a shotgun. He got shot with a shotgun, and like in the arm, and went through so much adversity as a child. So to see him go from all the struggles that he went through to becoming, you know, the shortest player in NBA history, it was super inspiring. And I hold these guys in such reverence because these are guys I grew up watching, and the fact that I get to sit down and, you know, interview them, talk to them, it's definitely a blessing.
What is the process that you embark on to do the crazy research that you're able to do? Because a lot of people always like to know, well, how is it that someone found that out? Or as we were saying before, there's that famous clip of Nardwuar interviewing J. Cole with the mic just in his face, and he just says, "Who told you that?"
Yeah, I mean, so I guess my thing was, in this whole sports media world that we're in, I kind of came up to it by a complete accident. Like, I didn't mean to get myself involved in this. It was just kind of happened. Like, Yahoo kind of just fell into my lap. Not really fell into my, but basically what happened was, you know, start of the pandemic, you know, was going through a breakup, and I was trying to figure out, okay, what do I want to do with my life, essentially. And for some reason, you know, I have a background in like acting, performing arts, and all that. But something clicked in me where it's like, I don't really love this as much as I originally thought I did. But I still love, you know, creating content and doing YouTube and all this stuff. So what can I do to kind of what's that in between that I can still fulfill my creative satisfaction? And for me, it turned out being you know, interviews and just sitting down with my friends and just having live chats. And I was super inspired by guy like Nardwuar, like you said, Sean Evans from Hot Ones, because I love seeing, like you said, the reactions from their guests when they're like, "Man, how the hell you know that? What?" And then it was one of those things where I was doing that with my friend. They weren't expecting it at all. They just thought, okay, you know, he wants to do a podcast. Cool, we'll sit down and talk. So when I kept hitting them all, these are just my friends, by the way. So they have no reason to stroke my ego or anything like that. They just tell me how it is. So when I'm hitting them with all these questions that they were like, "Bro, how'd you know this?" I'm just like, for me, I was like, "Oh, this feels good." And then it wasn't until I interviewed Cabby Richards, where that was, to this day, I'm still trying to chase the high from that interview, because he had the best reactions ever in terms of like me coming at him with all of my questions. And it was after that, like, I never felt such a creative high in my life. And I guess, like I said, I've still been chasing that. And I keep trying to chase that with anytime I get like a new guest or someone. I guess, so sorry, that kind of got long-winded, but to answer your question, it's just, you know, finding out the internet is your best friend. Let's put it that way, without me giving up all my secrets and stuff like that.
Of course.
And I guess you learn to be resourceful in terms of when you want to study up on whatever you want to study up on. And I feel like if you're really passionate about something, I'm one of those people. I have a very like obsessive personality. So when I lock in on something and I find something I'm super passionate about, I go crazy with it. And I'm just like, so for example, like when I'm interviewing a guest, I need at least a week or so to just kind of like, if I book a guest, and sometimes it's a very last minute thing where I have to do all my research in like it's like Amazon Prime. I have to do it in the next 48 hours. And I'm like, okay, I gotta go crazy with this. And there are some nights where I literally did not sleep because I was just up all night putting all my notes together and putting all my questions together. But there's a good I'll put it this way. There's an interview out there, I won't say which, from Sean Evans. Like they were interviewing him, and he basically gave away all his secrets as to all the research that he does. And I kind of took some of that information, and then I did some of my own additional research and supplemental studying from there. And then, that's how I guess how. And by no means do I think I'm on the level of Nardwuar or Sean Evans. I'm trying to get to that point. But the way I see it, it's like with yourself. You're 100 episodes in on this podcast. Yo, congrats. I think I saw a percentage where it was like 10%. It's like out of all people who start a podcast, 10% of people make it to episode 4, and then like 5% of that make it to episode 20, and then 1% of that make it past that. So you're already in that like very, very small minority of people who are like going through. So kudos to you.
Oh, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. And it reminds me of like Duolingo. Like it seems like it's so easy to do, but it's also as easy not to do. Mm-hmm. And that's something I've read in the book called The Slight Edge. I think it's by Jeff Olson, where he talks about, he gives tons of stories and examples of the people who end up becoming the most successful are the ones that are able to do the easy thing that's also easy not to do, but they do it all the time. Yeah. And you just got to remind yourself of that constantly. So when you watch Hot Ones, or even when you watch Nardwuar and you see the rapport that he can build with these people, sometimes you think that the methods you would go to find information about people is creepy, but you're like, well, they put it out there, so why not use it? Like maybe some people have an advantage where they know someone personally of the guest, and they can actually do background info that you would have to have that connection to obtain. But in terms of the Cabby interview, what was the question that got the most memorable reaction, in your opinion?
Oh man, there were a lot of them, but the biggest one for me, I think, was because he wasn't expecting it at all. I asked him a question about basically how he met his wife, and it caught him so off guard, and he ended up telling a story that he had, like, I guess I got the scoop, so to speak, of how he proposed to her. And I'll let people, if like it's still on my YouTube somewhere if people want to find it out. But basically, it was a funny story that he ended up telling Kawhi Leonard, and he actually made Kawhi Leonard laugh through that story. And I was just like, whoa, this is like that's crazy. And it was just a reaffirmation for me. It's like, why do I do this? It's to hear these stories of these incredible people, and just kind of, I find that a quote that I like to live by, that one of my best friends shared me, and has been stuck in my head since: you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And I feel like the more you surround yourselves with like-minded individuals and people who have achieved so much in their life, and you just like hearing their stories and learning from them and taking little bits of wisdom and nuggets of just everything that their experiences, you can apply that to your own life, regardless of if you're in content creation, if you're whatever you're in, you can always apply that and use it to make yourself better.
That's such a great quote. And even if people who have heard it more than others think it's beaten to death, cliches exist for a reason.
Exactly. That's the reason why they're cliches, because they're tried and true methods. And it's like, why do people this is probably a bad example, but why do people run to lose weight? Because it works, right? So,
or people, the exercise for certain reasons, or why is it? Like you just, there's tons of examples. And I found when you're talking to guests that you're so right, that euphoric high you get from when someone says, how did you know that? Or even when they just react to the way that you ask them a question they've never been asked. Mm-hmm. And just seeing their eyes open up, or seeing that the way that their tone changes, is one of the most intrinsically rewarding things I think that content creators like us could feel. One example that comes to mind that I think is it's actually hilarious because it's related exactly to the question you just mentioned. You asked Cabby. I asked Dustin Nielsen, who's the play-by-play voice of the CFL and TSN. I asked him, what's your favorite thing about being a dad? Because I know he's always posting with his kids on Twitter and always posting like, oh, I love them so much and blah, blah, blah. And then just the way he opened up, I was like, wow, like these people are so touched when you ask them about something they genuinely care about. And even if it seems tacky on social media or whatever, even when I see you tweet about certain obscure little things, you think, oh, no one's watching, or oh, no one's liking this, or no one knows what I'm talking about. There's always the chance that there's that one person out there who remembers, yep, this guy was talking about playing in BLAVO 7 and my career mode. And he was talking about having, you know, Marcus Banks on his team, like blah, blah, blah. I'm going to ask him about, oh, well, what was it about, like, you know, having Marcus Banks or whatever, like just something totally random. And those are the things I think that really just bring the value of this way of life just to new heights.
It's a quote I have on my YouTube as well as my LinkedIn, but people don't always remember what you say, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And by no means am I going to start taking credit for like asking all these like questions, because I'm sure people, like I said, people have been doing, like Nardwar, Sean Evans, they've been doing this from time. But I've noticed, at least in the sports media, at least in the sports media world, like circle that we're here in, like with Toronto, I guess, I've noticed that a lot of these interviews and questions that people in the bigger networks are asking are becoming a lot more thoughtful. Like I get it. When you're working for a TSN or a Sportsnet, they give you like, you have to hit on certain points. You have to hit on certain questions, and you only have a certain amount of time to ask and get these all in. So you don't always have time to ask like the really like deep, insightful questions. But I've noticed that there seems to be this shift that it's getting a little bit more personal. And I don't know if it's just because TSN or Sportsnet are taking more chances on people who aren't more from the traditional media world, but I don't know. It's just nice to see that the line between the media and the athlete is getting a little less, I guess it's getting a little less blurry, so to speak, because one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of former players are entering the media now because of that toxic relationship between the media and professional athletes, because they tend to craft their own narrative for these players. And whether it's like a Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith, they spew all this negativity. You see it right now happening with Skip Bayless and Russell Westbrook and his family. Yeah. They're getting tired of all the slander that he's putting towards them, that he's just saying, oh, I'm just calling it how it is. And that's why you see players like JJ Redick starting his own podcast, you know, Matt Barnes, Steven Jackson, then to go back even further, why Kenny Smith, Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, why they're all on, you know, Inside the NBA, because the players are starting to take control of their narratives, because they realize, okay, all of these media guys are going to slander us and we don't want to be remembered for this, this, and this. So we're going to tell our stories. And that's why you have so many of these platforms and these former players doing this. And I think the media has noticed, okay, if we don't start to adapt a little bit and stop writing articles and publishing headlines just to get like clickbait or to get attention, even if because like the shameful thing is that negativity is what fuels clicks for the most part. It's like, oh, so-and-so did this. I can't believe they did this. But if they take a step back and try to make things more personal and positive, even though it's not less popular, you establish a better relationship with the players. And then ultimately you get those interviews that are more wholesome and are more meaningful and impactful.
Yeah. And when you talk about the Skip Baylesses and how people consuming the crazy amount of negativity that they spew, it eventually turns itself into just this behemoth that has a life of its own. And when people they look for, you know, First Take or whatever show that it is you watch for all the hot take artists, just remember these people are fallible too, and they're human beings. And even if they were experts in their field, they're still going to say things that are wrong. And yes, they obviously got there from having to know a lot about something in the first place. They're not just completely clueless, but now they're kind of on autopilot mode. We were talking about this in one of our journalism classes, where you look at someone like Stephen A. is Stephen A the shining example of what a journalist should be like? Maybe not now, maybe before when he was grinding and had to put in more serious opinion and thought, but Stephen A and Skip Bayless, when I first saw them, they just went back and forth with the dumbest topics. I'm like, why are these guys doing this? And now it gets to a point where it's so flanderized that you see people actually creating a negative impact on a real person's life. Is what Russell Westbrook overrated in terms of how good people think he is? Maybe, sure, you can debate that, but is it worth actually slandering and threatening the life of a real human being for a game? Like, come on.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where it's like, I get it, Skip's, he everyone's entitled to their own opinion and stuff, but if it's getting to the point where you're essentially gaslighting fans in I refuse to call it the crypto.com, gaslighting fans in Staples Center, like, where do you draw the line? Because obviously people, when you have a platform and a voice as big as Skip Bayless, people are going to feed into that. And then if they're going to hurl all of this hatred and negativity towards Westbrook because of, say, something Stephen A is like fueling, like, yo, it's not okay, right? At the end of the day, athletes are still humans. Like, they're just doing it they're just getting paid a lot more and are in the public eye for everyone to see. Like, no, I always equate it to, like, let's say you're a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. Imagine you had someone come into your place of work and being like, you suck at your job, you're not supposed to be, like, yo, what? Like, no one's doing that. So it's like, I get it, you pay a ticket, you can do whatever you want in the arena. Just I still think there's a line of there's still a line that you have to draw when it comes to, heckling just for the spirit of sport and just actually just slandering and essentially like verbally assaulting another human being.
And that's why I think it's good that they have players who are starting to get more involved in the media, like you said, to shift the narrative back into their hands, because these behind the scenes segments, like the one with Serge Ibaka, right? Like what he does, like, yeah, you can think of what he does in the court, whatever, but seeing him, how he is in his element and who he is as a person, it really tells a lot of these people more than what you see on the basketball court or even on the baseball field or the soccer pitch, whatever. People are amazing at sports, but who they are as a person off the field can be a very different story, for better or for worse. And I know that you've had some opinions on the way that the broadcast of Serge Ibaka's YouTube content has been shared, or lack of sharing, I guess I should say.
Oh man.
I want to touch on that a little bit because you have a lot more expertise in the YouTube realm, let's say, than some of the people who work actually for real companies. Like, what are your thoughts on Serge Ibaka's content and its distribution on YouTube?
I got to be a little careful with what I say here because
of course.
I don't want to potentially burn any bridges with you. I know I give them, like, here's the thing. I feel like, and I've said this in tweets before, so I'm fine with saying it now, that YouTube and digital media as a whole is going to overtake traditional media networks very soon. Like, it's coming. I don't know when but it's happening. You can already see it. For example, I think YouTube is like the godfather of all of the streaming videos because it is. Netflix was a DVD subscription service before it became the gigantic streaming platform it is now. YouTube pretty much kickstarted that, and then you dive deeper. Now that everything's being streamed, look what happened. The networks are answering back with, like, NBC, CBS. They have their own streaming platforms now, and if you ask a majority of people if they watch live TV, most of the time they're probably streaming it on their laptop, or they're watching a recording after the fact. I don't think it's going to be that much longer before everything is consumed digitally now. You even see it with the movie theater experience. I think that, like, the art of watching a movie in the theaters, in the cinema, I think it's dying because you see it and the pandemic really kicked that into gear, because now that companies are realizing that you can easily distribute your content on, like, say, Netflix or Hulu or whatever digital platform it's on, they're saving all those big blockbuster releases for, the Spider-Mans, the Batmans of the world, because these are like those sees, these are those films that you have to see like in theaters, as compared to, just off the top of my head, Tick Tick Boom, which was like a musical with Andrew Garfield. That was like released primarily through on Netflix. And my biggest gripe I find with broadcasters now is that they're not fully optimizing for YouTube as well as they should. Like, in my opinion, I think ESPN does it really well, because ESPN realizes that the majority of the people who watch their channel, at least from what I've seen, it's mostly basketball. Like, basketball is number one, and then it's football. That's why you see so many ESPN videos of like Stephen A and whoever, whether it be Kendrick Perkins, Max Kellerman, they're always usually talking about basketball first or football next, because that's what their demographic watches. And then but then if you look at a YouTube channel like say TSN or Sportsnet, it's kind of, you don't really know what their focus is, because I don't think they know who their audience is based off of looking at. I think I do. I think it's mostly hockey watchers who are watching their content, because if you look at TSN and Sportsnet, just looking at their YouTube, the majority of their views are going towards like hockey highlights and everything like that. But the thing is that they're trying to do too much. Well, it's like, oh, they're posting basketball, doing this, doing that. The thing with YouTube right now is you have to, in order to grow and thrive, you have to have a specific niche of content. The way I see it is, YouTube is ultimately, well, it's not even ultimately, it is considered the biggest search engine in the world in terms of the internet. Bigger than Google. That's why Google bought it. So if you go onto YouTube and you look up, like, say, highlights for a basketball game or whatever, top result will probably be coming for you, the NBA, because, well, it's the NBA, right? But if you want that more local coverage from, TSNs or Sportsnets, if their focus is all over the place, I get it's a sports network, but it's not going to come up on the feeds as much because of the channels like ESPN, NBA, whose primary focus is basketball, right? So if anyone at TSN Sportsnet's listening to this, I think you should look into your analytics and figure out which of your subscribers are tuning into which content. Because I see it, and I don't watch a whole lot of other Raptors content, stuff like that, but from what I've seen, and I've tuned into it, so like, for example, the Raptor show with Will Liu and Alex Wong, they should be getting way more viewers than they really should be. The problem is the way that Sportsnet distributes it, it's not optimized for them to get that massive attention, because you have to I always try to set it as the benchmark of how many subscribers do the Toronto Raptors have. They have about, I think, a little bit over 100,000. So if you're making Toronto Raptors content, ideally, you're going to have to, in terms of subscribers and views, you're probably not going to surpass the actual Raptors channel if you're making strictly Raptors content. Because if anyone's looking for Raptors content on YouTube, they're going to go straight to the Raptors page. They're going to go open gym interviews, because they'll have that. But if you want to if you have a different kind of style of content, that's why I always say, this is getting a little bit long-winded, but if you're in a space where it's very competitive, like there's so many, and this might not make me very popular, but I think a lot of Raptors content on YouTube is garbage, because it's a lot of these guys who are just pretty much, they say their takes and they think they're Stephen A or whoever, and it's just like there's no substance to it. It's like, yeah, you're repeating stuff that if I wanted to hear someone's take on the Raptors, I'd listen to someone big, more established, like, say, Blake Murphy or like Will Liu or whoever. Why should I consume your content as opposed to that? So you always have to have something that sets you apart from the rest, and always have to also acknowledge that depending on what your niche is, you have to understand who, like, the big cats in your niche are, and you have to level your expectations. Where I'm not saying you could potentially surpass it, but if you want to get into, like, say, YouTube terms, like Mr. Beast, he's known for, like, giving away lots of money and putting on these big spectacles. He has 90 million subscribers on just his main channel, over 200 million on all of his other channels. So if you want to make that kind of content, there's an audience for it. Just know that unless you're going bigger and better than, the Godfather, Mr. Beast himself, you're only going to get like a fraction of those subscribers, which is fine. It all depends on like what your goals are for YouTube. But I guess to wrap this up a little bit, I think if TSN and Sportsnet focused more on what their audience consumes and kind of like hones in on that and finds more of a focus, I think they'd see a lot more success on YouTube. Like I said, and if any of y'all reps at TSN or Sportsnet are listening to this, I can guarantee y'all right now, give me 30 days, give me ratings of your YouTube, I'll blow your analytics up. Trust me.
You heard it here first, folks. And I think I will say the thing I think they do really well at TSN is hockey content. And you can see
Yes.
with Bar Down, like Bar
Down, exactly.
It's been so successful because, you know, Dave Krixt, who's a genius when it comes to digital media, realized, okay, what is it people want to watch? How is this medium evolving? How can I bring it to them rather than making them watch traditional TV? But obviously, you don't have, there's no like, you know, bank shot or end one for basketball. There's no like, you know, touchdown or something, whatever for football, because hockey is the thing that people watch, which is fine. You don't need to go and cater to every single sport in equal amount, because obviously people in Canada watch way more hockey content on YouTube, especially through TSN and Sportsnet, than they do basketball or football. And we've had people who come to our classes and talk about in Sportsnet, you know, for example, they're not a property rights holder of the CFL. So the organization that's going to post the most about them is TSN, or Sportsnet's mainly about hockey. So they're going to post about hockey more than anything else because they made the deal with the NHL. And TSN has Bar Down to talk about the NHL and the quirkiness and bring out the unique personalities of the people who run the channel, rather than say, well, we're going to give our takes on the current NHL news and hope that we just shout louder than Sportsnet, because that's not going to work, because whoever's the most established, it's people being lazy with marketing. Okay, Coke or Pepsi, those are my options. Well, no, there's this. No. It's Coke or Pepsi because those are the only two ones that people actually are going to stop to analyze, right?
Yeah.
The same, like Coke and Pepsi is Sportsnet and TSN, literally with the colors as well. Like the Score was the little engine that could, and obviously produced the great likes of Cabby, Tim, Sid, you know, the list goes on. But then eventually they became, you know, Cabby's now a Sportsnet, so he basically became consumed by Coke or Pepsi. And he actually did work for TSN as well, so he was a part of both. But if you were creating content, okay, so then let me ask you this.
Yeah.
If you were running the YouTube channel for TSN or Sportsnet about basketball or just in general, what high level things would you do rather than before we get into the nitty gritty or get lost in the weeds?
Yeah.
How would you promote basketball content? Or even more specifically, if you'd like to take this up instead, how would you get the viewership up for the like Will Lou and Alex Wong's show?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, I by no means do I claim to be like an expert at all this YouTube's and stuff like that. Cause you know, at the end of the day, I'm sure the, you know, they're going to do what's best for business for them, whatever. Cause I don't know all the business behind that, because I'm sure it has to be a reason why. But if I were any of those, I would focus in on what, like I said, what their viewers are getting the most out of. So for example, with TSN, I've noticed that the majority of their views are going towards their Bar Down content when it's not related to, like, you know, sports highlights and stuff like that. Because you see, they do stuff like, you know, the NHL quizzes. For whatever reason, those videos do so well. And I think it's because of the personalities behind them, because at the end of the day, what makes YouTube such an elite platform is the parasocial relationships that are developed between the audience and the channel, or whoever's behind the channel. That's why it's so important to have like kind of a face behind the brand. Obviously, it's harder to do with a network, because when there's a lot of different moving parts to it. But yeah, like I said, notice how with Bar Down and their quizzes and all that kind of those get the most views because people have gravitated towards these personalities. They built that kind of parasocial relationship with them. And with Sportsnet, it's a little bit trickier, because with TSN, I think it's very clear cut. Their focus is primarily hockey. Sportsnet, it's a little bit all over it's primarily hockey, but as of this season, you know, they've shown it. They've started to invest more into basketball. That's why they gave Will and Alex their own show, and why they're doing all of this different stuff. But I think it all depends on, you know, the identity they want to establish for themselves. Because I think, like, you know, not to toot my own horn, toot Yahoo's own horn or whatever here, but Yahoo Sports Canada has done a very, very good job as establishing their platform as like a Raptors basketball hub because of all the success they saw in the past in creating content. Because whenever whoever subscribed to Yahoo Sports Canada, they can expect primarily Raptors basketball content. And I'm not entirely sure. I think they have a separate channel for like hockey and stuff like that. So if they really want to grow, I get it. If you have one general main channel, that's good because that'll probably have the most subscribers and views and whatnot. But if you have, I feel like a more niche down. So if like say TSN and Sportsnet expanded to like, okay, this is our channel for basketball, this is our channel for hockey, did all that, I think they would see a little bit better, because the problem with YouTube's algorithm is that a lot of it is based on the viewer metric of watch time and session time. So how that works is, say, for example, with your podcast, right? I go on and I watch an entire episode and I was like, oh, that was great. I'm going to watch another. The more that increases your session time because I'm consuming so much of your content. That sends a message to YouTube saying, oh, this content's really popular. People are staying on YouTube for a longer amount of time to consume this content. So we're going to push it to our homepage for other people to see. And then that starts a snowball effect of like, okay, this content's really popular. People are watching it. And that's how channels ultimately grow in the YouTube algorithm, and how videos get a lot of views, because YouTube is pushing that videos that people want to watch. So if you're putting out content that is all over the place in terms of your audience, where it's like, okay, people are coming for the hockey videos and it's getting like, 100,000, 1 million views, but then you put out something like, an NFL or a CFL video when your primary audience is hockey, they're not going to click on that video, and that's going to ruin your watch time because people are coming in expecting hockey. And we were talking about this earlier. That's how I kind of like tanked my own YouTube channel, so to speak, because I was putting out sports card content for a period of time, and that was like what was making me popular. So then when I made the shift and I was like, okay, I want to go back into, I'm kind of tired of this. I want to make like Raptors basketball content. My views were suck. They were like, can I swear on this?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
They were shitty. And that's when I realized I had to recalibrate my strategy in terms of what I was doing. And then, eventually, again, it's nothing, but I put out a video about Thaddeus Young and it hit like 10,000 views, in the first 12 hours, which obviously is not viral by any means. But when you have a niche content, if you have something as niche as that, and like, let's be real here, I love Thaddeus Young, but not everyone's going to be looking for Thaddeus Young on YouTube the same way they're going to be looking for, say, LeBron James, right?
Only weirdos like us would obsess over the Thaddeus Youngs of the world.
Exactly. And by knowing your audience, you're like, okay, Raptors fans are going to be looking for, oh, Thaddeus Young got traded to the Raptors. Okay, who is this Thaddeus Young guy? We want to look up. That's why I made a video like really quickly because it was trending. And then boom, I got like, I don't know if it was the most viewed video about Thaddeus Young Raptors related at the time. I think it might have been. But that just goes to show that you have to really know your audience. If to succeed on YouTube, first off, make the best videos possible, but also really know your audience and cater to them, because if they're happy, it makes YouTube happy. And if YouTube's happy, they'll push your videos.
On a more specific note related to the Raptors, you're talking about like Thaddeus Young, for example. We were mentioning before we started recording that we could list the entire Rolodex of all the obscure players, or what would seem obscure to current Raptors fans or bandwagon jumpers, all the players we remember who weren't in the spotlight between the mid 2000s to late 2000s. Yep. And now when Raptors fans want to solely follow the team and dive headfirst into it and have a reason to because they're good, then that's what brings back to life the Thaddeus Youngs and the Malachi Flynns of the world, because yeah, maybe they're not bona fide starters, but the fact that they're now on a team that you follow and you're in love with, it makes them way more interesting. So because they have that success, it allows for the foundation to reel in more people to the further corners of the team, rather than before it's like, oh, well, I just like Chris Bosh, or people that love teams solely based on one player. Classic example, LeBron James fans, right? Wherever LeBron goes, they go. That's it. They stay invest in people who are on the team once he's there for a while. But Yeah. And so you take advantage of that and you see the results. So now with the content that you're creating, what is then the main point of your strategy when it comes to trying to get views or trying to create the most entertaining videos possible?
That's a great question because I'm still trying to figure that out. Because like I do want to make like Raptors and basketball for sure, but at the same time, my goal is like, you know, and I think people will get mad at this. People who are like are in rap media, so they're gonna hate me for what I'm about to say. But like I said, I kind of fell into this by accident, and I love it. And I love what all the opportunities this got me, but I don't see it as my ultimate end game. Like I don't want to be like Will Liu. I don't want to be like Stephen A. I don't want to be like any of these guys in terms of the sports media world. I kind of want to do my own thing in terms, and I'm still trying to figure what that is. I don't know if it's necessarily in sports media, but I do know is that I love creating content. I love the Raptors. I love basketball. So it's just a matter of and I want to, make an impact and tell stories on like a grandest scale possible. And I know that if I limit it to just, Raptors, I'm kind of limiting myself. Cause like I said before, if you're making content specifically about the Raptors, look at how many subscribers say like the Raptors channel has itself. You're probably going to get maybe a fraction of that at peak. But if you're making content about, say, basketball and the NBA as a whole, now your audience opens up a lot more because now you'll see, I don't know how much of these like YouTubers you follow, but like say like, the Kenny Beachums, the Mike Korzembas.
Mike Korzemba's a classic. Yeah,
exactly. You see these guys, they built these huge audience just making basketball content. And, quite frankly, there's a reason why, first off, there's a reason why people like content creator, social media influencer is like one of the most sought after is the most sought after profession by like millennials and Gen Z now, because obviously it's the fame and everything like that. But the money that you can make from YouTube, like these guys are making some nice money that some of the bees, you'll have the traditional media networks, they might not be able to swing you. So it's all about, that's why I keep saying that I think if you want to succeed as an independent content creator and creating content, stick with YouTube, go with YouTube. Cause I feel like that's the money. That's where there's still a lot more room. I don't think YouTube has reached its height yet. It seems like it cause it keeps growing and growing. I don't think it's there yet. Another thing I'd love to bring up is like TikTok. TikTok is probably the most popular social media platform right now. The only thing I have my gripes with TikTok though is that it's all short form content. So the hardest thing about that is if you're building an audience on TikTok of say you have 1 million followers on TikTok, say you have 1 million followers on TikTok, you won't necessarily be able to migrate all of them over to YouTube because it's a totally different ballgame. This is short form content. And that's why I think TikTok is trying to roll the dice on expanding their video length down to 10 minutes, which it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I don't think it's going to go too well for them. But at the end of the day, there's a reason why all the big TikTokers, like, the Charlie D'Amelio's, the Addison Rays, Bryce Halls, there's a reason why they all are moving over to YouTube, because that's where the money is. And that's where you can really, really grow your audience. But I think we're in the best time when it comes to if you want to be a content creator, today's like it's the golden era right now, because there's literally people on YouTube making full-time incomes and, providing for their families and living off of just creating videos. And you could be literally creating videos as long as you know your audience and what you're passionate about. There's an audience for everything. There's some channels where all of they're doing is like how-tos on building boats or the most random stuff you could think of. There's an audience for, and if you hone in on that audience, you can literally like make a living out of it and make it your full-time career. But as long as you're passionate about it.
And it's not like you have to be making $1 billion. Obviously, there's only so many Mr. Beasts that exist out there. And even when you're talking about the way that you have strategized your content, one of the things that I've heard or have seen people talk about when growing empires, or if that's one of your goals, is when you start specific and then you start to grow into the general game. Because I think that one of the things that people get lost in, and I'm sure you've experienced this, or at least know people who have experienced it, is when people say, well, I want to make videos about the NBA. Well, great. But it's like, how many people make videos about the NBA. Someone's going to take one look at your channel and see Mike Korzemba and be like, dude, I don't know who the hell you are unless you're my friend. And even sometimes, or most of the times, if they're your friend, they still probably would rather watch Mike Korzemba, because until you are Mike Korzemba, even if you're there, even if that's your friend, they're still gravitating towards the more popular name brand because it's easier. It's more convenient, right? The expedience, the desire for expedience in consuming content is at an extreme all-time high, and I don't think it'll ever stop.
You hit the nail completely on the head right there, because like you said, if you're just an up and comer, you know, my biggest thing is, how are you providing value to your audience, right? And how are you setting us up? It's okay. Like, if you want to make content like Mr. Beast or Microsoft, that's fine. It's okay to be inspired. One of my favorite quotes of all time is, good artists copy, but great artists steal. So if you're just straight up knocking off, like, I don't want to like attack any, there's so many Mr. Beast knockoffs on YouTube where it's like, why would I watch? Yeah, congrats, they're doing well for themselves, because like that spectacle content is what's hot right now. But when that dies down, like, because I don't know how into YouTube you are, but YouTube's gone in phases. There's that era of like, it was all pranksters, right?
Oh yeah.
There's an era of pranksters, and then like, you know, the Fousey tubes, the Vitalis, like those were on top, the Roman Atwoods. And then what happened? It migrated over to vlogs. Casey Neistat, you know, the Peter McKinnons, the Sam Colders. These were the guys who were like kind of started taking over the land. Emma Chamberlain. And then everyone became a vlogger. And then if you were a vlogger, you know, that's how you grew. And then now we're in the Mr. Beast era. We have Mr. Beast, guys like Eric, Ryan Trahan, all of these guys who are making these like big, quick spectacle content type videos. So if you're trying to capitalize on that, that's great. But what sets you apart from, say, a Mr. Beast? What sets you apart from Casey Neistat? Yeah, you're inspired by them, but you have to take inspiration from your favorite creators. Well, you have to add your own voice, right? You have to be authentic to yourself, because I feel like so many people, they try to just rip off of these popular creators and they don't inject any of their personality or bring anything new to the table, right? So if you want to, my biggest advice, and again, this is something I'm still trying to figure out for myself, because by no means am I an established creator for all. I think I will be. I have a feel like I have my game plan and I have the drive and everything, where it's like, yo, that YouTube play button, I'm going to be hanging that shit on my wall real soon. Maybe not like in the next like week or so, but like, we'll see what happens.
Of course.
Yeah. But that's the biggest thing. Like what you were saying, find a niche and like narrow down on that and like be really good at that thing. And once you start building an audience, that's when you can get a little bit more broad and expand, because once you have an established audience and like people who are like ride or die for you, and that's the thing with like influencer fan bases and communities and all like that. And I'm sure you've seen it. Like, if people become a fan of you through like YouTubers, I think, they ride with you till the end, and those guys will help bring your content up. And like, once you, it's like a domino effect, right? Once you get it kind of happened with me like last year, where, started out with like 0 subscribers, and I made a bet with myself. I was like, okay, put it out into the universe. I'm going to get 1,000 subscribers by the end of the month. I did it, and I was feeling real nice. And then I halted all the momentum, because I was like, I don't like making card content anymore. And then, back to square one. And I feel like, even though I have like a small amount of subscribers, I feel like I'm starting from 0 again. But that's the biggest thing, is you have to niche down. And then once you start building an audience of people who will consume your content, then you can start expanding into other genres and niches. Because if you look at Mr. Beast, he was trying to throw so much different stuff at the wall to stick. He was making like Call of Duty and Minecraft videos when he first started out. He had no idea what the hell he's doing, but through trial and error and trying to figure out what works, he found his thing, which was the most absurd thing, where he literally made a video of him counting to 100,000. And that's what blew him up. And he's like, oh, okay, people like watching this like weird, like crazy, extreme stuff, like spectacles, like as I was saying earlier. Then he translated to, I'm going to give $10,000 to a homeless person. And then eventually, next thing you know, this guy is giving away like $1 million. He's giving away a private island and stuff, because it's just like he experimented with the formula and he just built on it, go bigger and bigger. And that's what I'm saying. And I guess to end this like, I guess, question off with is like what you were saying, you don't need 1 million subscribers. You don't need like millions and millions of views. You don't need all that to make this a full-time thing. I forget who I should find out who actually made this theory or quote. It's the concept of 1,000 true fans, where if you have 1,000 people who are like, no matter what content you put out, no matter what merch, no matter what anything you put out there, they consume, they buy, they sell, you can make a living off of that. But in order to get that loyalty, you have to provide them with value. So if we're talking about YouTube, if you want to be, say, a guy who specializes in vinyl records, this is random thought. Like, you want to be an expert in vinyl records and what people want to buy in terms of like their vinyls. You show that in the content offer. It's like, okay, here's a better example. Like Marquez Brownlee, he's become like the biggest tech YouTuber on YouTube. So whenever people are like, oh, what cell phone should I buy? Or, what computer should I? First guy they go to, they're not going to go to your random Joe Schmoes and stuff. They're going to go to Marquez Brownlee because he established himself as the voice, as the name into that niche of, and now he's become the voice where obviously he has like 15 million subscribers. But if you take a niche and become like the person of that niche, like you're the guy of that niche, people will flock to you. The actual, here's a better example. Sports Card Investor is the biggest like sports card channel on YouTube. Great guy. Jeff's a nice guy. He took that niche. No one was making content about sports cards really to a huge scale until he came in and started doing it. And now he turned him literally just making videos in front of a camera in his bedroom into a whole business where he has a whole staff and has a studio office, has his own affiliate marketing and everything, has his own products that he puts out. Like, that's all it takes. And you can really make this a full-time thing.
It's crazy sometimes the opportunities for growth that people can't see right in front of them. And even when you're starting a content creation journey, it sounds and seems scary at times, where people sit there and wonder, well, the imposter syndrome kicks in, or I don't want to act like I think I'm better than other people. But the truth is, who out there is truly an expert that everything they say is infallible and everything they say is the word of God, basically? Like, every person can make mistakes, and just the people that are willing to put their head down and be determined and say, I'm going to get 1,000 subscribers in a month, or I'm going to have 5 YouTube play buttons hanging in my house in the next year. Those are the people who also strategize and don't just say it, are the ones that are going to get there. And so that's why I thought that you'd be someone who's super amazing to talk to, because with how determined you are, and you don't have like 100,000 subscribers on Twitter, or followers on Twitter. You don't have like 20 million subscribers on YouTube or whatever, but you're so driven with everything you've done with the Raptors content, with even the people you've interviewed, right? Like, I'm sure people have said to you, like, man, how did you interview Jerome Williams? Or how did you interview like Gary Trent Sr.? Like, that's insane. And what happens is people talk with you, or your friends remember you from high school or university or whatever, and you joke. But then you get to a point where someone just kind of loses touch, or they're not really following into what you do. And then once they see that big name, then that's when they start running back, and that's when they start like paying attention. And it is an unfortunate reality of when you get the attention of people, that's only when they want to associate with you because of something crazy you've done. But the most satisfying part is when you look internally and see, wow, look at everything that I did day to day, and look at all the struggles I had to endure that not really many people saw, like you mentioned, with this, finding out the story of Mugsy Bogues, or even I'm sure with Jerome Williams or Gary Trent Sr., learning about the stories of these people is like a macrocosm for the journey that you are then on while interviewing them to get you to where you want to get to. You are learning about your journey through the eyes of these people. I think that's such a fascinating thing.
And yeah, man, that's the biggest thing is, and I'll admit, I get guilty of it all the time, where it's like you get lost in the sauce a bit, right? You do something cool and you're like, yeah, man. Like, here's the thing. When I got the Yahoo gig, when first got it, I remember I just put out a funny little photo. I photoshopped it. You know that whole when you know that meme of like Kevin Durant when he signed with the Warriors.
Yeah.
And it's like my next chapter. And then anytime KD loses to a team, people like make that meme and put it there. So I just did that, and I put like Yahoo's logo on it. That was like me announcing my I signed. Yeah. And what's crazy, I just thought it was a funny thing. No one really cares what I'm doing, whatever. The amount of people who are like, yo, congrats, that's so big, that's so huge. And like, that pumps your ego, but people, we're humans. We love that validation. But the thing is that, like what you were saying, once you kind of like, kind of lock in, and not everything is going to be, you're going to reach these highs of highs. And people like to, the unfortunate truth is people like to capitalize on that. They try to take advantage of like your success, right? They see you're up high, like, oh, sweet, this guy's doing something big. And I hope maybe like, we can work together and he can whatever, right? And it's something I've unfortunately had to learn, I guess, almost the hard way, where so many people were in my DMs and wanted to connect with me when I first got the Yahoo gig, and were like, hey, yo, man, let's work together. Let's do this up. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, this is cool. I have a lot of different networks that have doors have opened up. But the moment it's like, oh, I'm not on the forefront of everything. And it's like, I kind of like, got accustomed to what my role was. All these people were like, okay, they become quiet, right? And it isn't until you do your next big thing when they come back and it's like, oh man, congrats, it's so cool, like seeing all this stuff. And I have what you would call, I like to call it a Kanye complex, where it's like the way I see it is like, I try to be my most self-aware and like try to stay as humble as possible. But there are times where I just can't help it but be like I said, I'm throw it out there. I'm gonna get 1,000 subscribers in a month. Oh, I'm gonna get a YouTube play. I throw it out there, and sometimes I get sometimes that's just me. That's just my personality. I can be a little bit of a loudmouth. I'm a little bit extroverted. I can be a little bit full of myself, yes. But at the end of the day, you have to keep your head down and just do the work, And that's what I always try myself to do. Because anytime I put something out into the universe, I always remind myself, okay, you put it out there now. Now you have to put your head down and just like stay focused, because now that you've said what you've had to say and people are like, oh, you're either gonna go down like an idiot and be like, oh, like not that anyone will care, or you go down as like, damn, this guy pulled a Kobe Bryant. No, this guy pulled like a Steph Curry, and he was like, all right, I'm gonna shoot from half. Yep, he's going. I already know what's gonna go in. He doesn't even look at it, right? So you can't get too caught up in all of your current success. Like the most important part is not your end goal or the end destination, is enjoying the process and enjoying the journey of like creating content or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve in your life. Because if you're doing it for like, if you have an ulterior motive, it's like, oh, I want to do this to get to this, you're gonna fall a little short because you're not embracing the process. Comes with like, the struggles and all the BS that comes with it, in terms of like, okay, it's not always going to go your way. You're going to have some ups and downs. But you just got to stay locked in and always, I guess, know what your North Star is in terms of, okay, I want to accomplish this. Why do I want to do that? Okay, I have to do this, this, and this. And you have to set like, your roadmap towards that. So I don't know if that kind of makes sense, because my bad. I tend to go on these like tangents and rants when I talk about like this stuff. But
no, man, it does make sense, and it always makes more sense too once you've actually done even just a fraction of what you're saying. You're talking about humans like having their ego stroked, but at the same time, they also can't be too full of themselves, because then that creates causes their downfall. But then they can't be too imposter syndrome, because then they don't get anywhere. So you have to strike that balance. And people always talk about, in the world of sports media specifically, how do you find work-life balance? It's like, if I'm sure you know who Tim Grover is.
Yeah. Oh, yo. I have Relentless on my shelf. That's one of my favorite books of all time.
Such a great book. So yeah. I really want to read Winning. That's the next one I really want to get down.
Do you consider yourself a cleaner?
I would say that I gravitate towards the cleaner mentality. Maybe not with every single thing in your life to a point where you're psychotic and you're just like, you're Michael Jordan doing the dishes or something. But I think that it's admirable to do. And would every person in the world want to be exactly like Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan? Not necessarily. They're inspirational, but to be a meta, a photocopy of them is not necessarily a life goal, I don't think. But I think the thing that is important to take away from being a cleaner is, and more specifically, the example I was going to give of Tim Grover is this. He talks about work-life balance. And this is the famous little spiel he gives. He says, who here wants to be successful? And it usually says it's a group of people, so everyone raises their hand. Who here wants happiness? And people raise their hand. Or who here wants to be in shape? And everyone raises their hand. And then what he ends up asking is, what is the number on a scale that is perfectly balanced? And people say 0. So it's like, and who wants a 0 life? Nobody, right? Like, everyone wants happiness. Everyone wants success and greatness and blah, blah, blah. And nobody wants 0 happiness. Nobody wants 0 friends. Nobody wants 0 this, 0 that. But the number on a perfectly balanced scale is 0. So the point he's trying to make is when you achieve perfect balance, you're not going to be able to get the best out of what it is you want. You're not going to be able to get the high aspiration goal that you're setting out to achieve. And so when it comes to, let's say you want a YouTube play button, like you want 1 million subscribers or something. Well, you're not going to be able to eat perfectly healthy and sleep 8 hours a night minimum, from the time you're unconscious to the time that you arise and actually get out of bed. You're not going to be able to go to the gym 4 times a week and do a 55-minute workout and a 20-minute warm up and 10-minute cool down. And like, it's not going to be like according to a schedule that's very strict and precise, because you're going to go crazy. You're going to have to bend the rules. And there's so many things that he says are amazing, or people think that there's 10 quick steps to success. It's like, he's like, there's no 10 steps. There's no staircase. You're going to have to learn how to find the next step, even when it's not even in front of you. And there's 100%. A million things I could say about the great wisdom of Tim Grover, but all you need to do is just even follow him on Instagram. You don't need to read his book. Just watch the reels he posts, and you will see very quickly what it is he's talking about. If you don't understand it, then maybe you haven't pushed yourself far enough yet. Like, it's the reason why he was able to be successful with Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and Dwayne Wade, like 3 bona fide Hall of Famers, some of the greatest basketball players to have ever lived on this earth, is because of the fact that he understood when you're trying to achieve what you want to achieve, Ben, you can't have, perfect balance. No, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't. You're going to have to make so many different kinds of sacrifices. And that's one of those things where you have to find, I don't think there's such thing as a perfect balance. There's a balance that's perfect to you.
Exactly. So, that's the point he does make. Yeah,
exactly.
That's yourself. It's not about what is perfect by the norm.
Because that was something I was struggling with for a while. Because, as you can see, I'm inspired by Kobe, and there was a brief period in time where I tried to like full on embrace Mamba mentality, where I was up at 5 a.m. every morning to get my workout in, to do my work. It gets to the point where, this is like, I'm not Kobe Bryant. And with Kobe, it was kind of for him, he was locked in on basketball, but not everyone is honed in on one thing, where it's like, I can't be like creating content 24/7. You got to have that kind of like own balance for other things, where it's like, I don't want to just create content. I want to make money. I want to have like social relationships. I want to get in shape. I want to do all this like different things, but you kind of have to look at it as like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs scenario, where, okay, what do you value most? And then from there, you distribute your time and effort accordingly. Because if you try to like hone in on everything and try to find that perfect balance, you're going to burn out, and you're going to end up trying to do so many things and try to put your effort, 100% effort into everything, that you end up burning out and putting in nothing, right? Because it's too much. So
that's exactly it, man. Like Tim Grover says, right? Who wants 0 friends, 0 happiness, 0 this, 0 that? Oh, perfect. The number on the perfect balance scale is 0. So if you try to achieve that, you're going to get nothing out of it, which it's such a powerful analogy, but it's true, right? Like, you got to choose one thing, you got to stick to it. You're going to have to make sacrifices in other realms, but once the sacrifices, are made and you are able to produce or to achieve that goal, then you realize the sacrifice was so worth it. And then you don't feel so bad about making that sacrifice.
100%.
So Ben, we are getting towards the end of our time on today's episode. So I want to have a rapid fire round and ask a few more fun questions before we part for today's episode.
Hey man, let's do it. I appreciate you having me on. This has been fun. You're over 100 episodes in. Keep grinding. You're killing it with this. And keep being relentless.
Oh, absolutely, man. That's how we do it around here. So the first question I have for you is, what is the most memorable loss that you watched for the Raptors? One that was super exciting, or it was just it obviously sucked in the end because losing sucks, but the one that just sticks out in your mind the most?
Man, So the one that pisses me off to this day and just leaves a sour taste in my mouth was, okay, to preface this, when Vince Carter got traded, that whole ordeal, when that happened, that felt like the first time I ever had my heart broken. I feel like that felt like the worst breakup of all time. And I remember as a kid, I didn't fully understand what was going on, but it was enough for me to cry about it and be like, why did he get traded? Why did he do this? How could he turn his back on whatever? There's the one game when he came back to Toronto and he had an exchange with Mo Pete where they were just playfully, like, he playfully slapped him and then Mo Pete slapped him back. And then Mo Pete got ejected. And then Vince was just like, I didn't do shit. Like, just like, and Mo Pete was so pissed. I was like, that bastard. Like, he let him get away with that. And I'm pretty sure that same game, that's when I still remember the sequence to this day where Jose Calderon is at the free throw line, misses his free throw. Nets get it back. Jason Kidd runs down the floor, gets the ball to Carter, hits the three, wins the game. And I remember just being like, I remember watching that as a kid. I remember I felt so low because it was just like the guy, he broke it. Not only did he leave us, but he comes back and he just takes a giant machete and just plunges it into the heart. So that was probably the most memorable loss across the Raptors games. Oh.
I thought you were when you started talking about Carter coming back to Toronto, I thought you were going to talk about the one during I think it was 08-09 season where they went to double OT and Carter hit the three to tie the game. Or no, I think it was just regular OT or double OT, but he hit the three to tie the game when they lost 129-127 over Calderon. And then in double OT, gets the inbound on the alley-oop dunk, reverse dunk. And just Matt Devlin goes, Carter! Like, I was like, oh, man. That to me was like, I could never see that ever again. That was just oh my goodness.
That one was rough too. That one, I remember that one. Honestly, I'm pretty sure I used to have a Slam magazine subscription. I remember opening and that was the poster for that magazine. I was like, get out of here. I remember just chucking it and be like, I don't want to see this.
No, I could never see that again, man. What is your favorite basketball movie of all time?
Coach Carter.
I'm not going to debate with you there. I would have to 100% agree. What do you think is the most overrated sports movie of all time?
Oh, man. Overrated. Okay. Oh. Damn. Okay. I think you stumped me because there's so many good ones, but what's it called? It's it's on the tip of my tongue. Shoot. How am I missing this one? It's oh, you know what? Oh, just for the sake, because I can't remember this. There's one I have on the tip of my mind. If I remember it, I'll message you and be like, yo, it was this. But for the sake of argument and to not run up the clock too much, I'll say Air Bud.
Yeah, that's fair. Like maybe it seems like classic for kids, but yeah, like it doesn't stand the test of Coach Carter's The Friday Night Lights of the world by any means.
That's you know what? I feel like we have the same taste in movies because in terms of like sports movies, like Coach Carter, Friday Night Lights, those are like, I think 1 and 2 when it comes to sports movies for me.
Yeah, the reason why I say Friday Night Lights is because people always talk about the show and the drama and the high schooliness of it. I'm like, no. Like the real elements of the way that they played football and the focus on the sport is what makes it a powerful story. Mm-hmm. And the realities of their lives and the pipe dreams that they try to achieve in the midst of, 1980s, like rural Texas. Like that to me is interesting. Not, who broke up with who. It's like, no. Like football is the background.
That show. Yeah. The fact that people like, I never watched the Friday Night Lights show, but the movie, oh my God, it was so good because it hit on all those themes you said. While I feel like, I don't know, I feel like the show doesn't really do that, but no. I haven't seen it, but I don't know, Boobie Miles, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's why it's so iconic. Like, I could go on for sure.
Yeah.
But another question. So the next question I want to ask is, if you had the opportunity to interview one person in the realm of the NBA that you believe that you throw out into the universe within the next year that you could interview, who would it be and why?
Damn.
Throw it into the universe, one player in the NBA that I believe that I can achieve the interview and get it and do it. Who would it be? Doesn't have to be the Raptors.
Within the next year?
Yeah, next year.
So, oh man, you're putting me on the spot.
So we can revisit in 1 year.
That's why I was like, man, he's making me call my shot. And it's, okay.
So that's why you don't have to say like LeBron or Giannis or something like that. That's outrageous for a year.
No. I wasn't going to say that. So 365 days. So from now until March 10th, 2023. The Kanye West in me wants to go out there and be like, boom. And then when I shoot my shot, like whatever. But there's a part of me that also wants to be like, okay, just measure your efforts. You know what? I'll say, what's that?
I was going to say, are you going to be Swaggy P about it? Or are you going to be Kyle Lowry and take the easy bucket?
Oh man, maybe somewhere in between. You know what? I'll say Scotty Barnes.
All right.
I'll say the reason why is, no, I'm not gonna give any reason why because I don't want to mess up the mojo. I'll just say Scotty Barnes. Scotty
Barnes. All right. Well, I will look forward to that, and I'll be the first person to promote it like Duke Washington from Rocky V when I see you.
That's a good reference. That's
chatting with Scott. Yeah, it's all obscure, like people Rocky fans. Like if you could, in the ring. Tommy Gunn only fights in the ring.
Oh my God, that's incredible. Yeah. Oh,
who's also the surgeon from Being the Movie. Like never forget.
And then see I can't say if when it does happen, you can take this clip right here.
Absolutely.
And whenever I push it, be like, this is where Ben called his shot. Just so y'all know, it was on my show.
Yeah, that's it. It
was on Huddle Up. Like,
yeah, that's all I can really ask. I'm not expecting to see LeBron or Giannis pop into your Zoom in the next year. Maybe in 5 or 10, or when the play button rolls in, then Mike Korzemba is
maybe
gonna have to sit in shock and awe of the great empire you've built of content creation. But
oh gosh,
we need to walk before we run first. So Scotty Barnes, I expect to see it before March 10th, 2023 at 11:59 Eastern.
At least you gave me a couple more hours, right? It's 6:02 right now. So I was like, okay, he gave me a couple extra hours, so that's not bad.
6 more hours, and it'll do. And the final question I have for you is this.
Yeah.
If you had the opportunity to be able to create a show based around your personal brand, like that could be put on television or YouTube, like a consistent show, like Tim and Friends, or Tim and Sid, whatever, something like that. That's just like, it's solely based around you, not like something else. What would be a segment that you would like to experiment with on your show?
Oh man,
it can be as silly as you want. It can be like sillier than Serge Ibaka and like, Kawhi, when are you going to resign? Or like him cooking in the kitchen and the moose testicles and all that kind of stuff. Like, what would be a segment you're like, it's like no company's bearing down on you. You're like, I can just experiment with this. I have whatever resources. I can bring in whoever. What would the segment be?
Oh man, that's a good one. Cause I'm currently working on a couple projects right now that is like something I've envisioned, but okay. I'll think of, does it have to be like sports related?
Nope, not at all.
Any okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Like so no budget at all. Like it's just like what like
whatever you want. You snap your fingers and it happens. You just have to just wave the magic wand.
Okay. Oh man, that's a great question. That's an incredible question. Okay, I'll come up with two. One is for like, obviously since we're in the sports basketball world, that put it that way. And then another one is for, I guess, the pop culture side of things, because I guess that's my shtick, sports pop culture. So for the sports one, actually, you know what? This could kind of this could kind of work for both. So this is where, so for basically, it's a kind of a simple premise, but just the idea of like, say, sitting down with like a pro athlete, say LeBron or whatever, right? He's at the end of his career, or like he's already retired or stuff. Sit down with them, and then basically we go through a highlight reel of all of his iconic moments, and just kind of breaking down, it's like, yo, what was your thought process going into this? And just kind of like sitting with him as he reacts to like all this stuff. So for example, if we were doing it with like music, right? If you sat down with someone like Drake, you go down his like Rolodex of all the records he's put out. You start from the very beginning. I'm not talking like, Thank Me Later. You go back to like Room for Improvement, like his mixtape type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'd be like, yo, like we'll throw it back. Because a lot of artists and I guess athletes too, when they do these interviews, it's a lot of it is toned into what's current and recent, right? I always like to I want to take them on like a time capsule or time travel where they go back to like, remember at this point of your career when you were doing this, and then just kind of take them through it and just kind of see their visual reaction of like, dang, like, because for me personally, whenever I look at old videos and stuff like that, it brings so much nostalgia to me, right? So if you kind of imagine doing that with athlete or musician or actor, whoever, and you're showing them kind of like a highlight reel of their career up to now, I think that'd be pretty cool. I know it's not the most original idea because I know it's been done before with like I think GQ or Vogue has done it with like actors in their movies where it's like they look back at all their previous roles and stuff like that. Something like that, but doing an interesting like twist to it. Give me time. I'll figure that one out.
I feel like one that would be really like unique, I guess, just to myself, that just came into my mind as you were talking about showing people stuff. I feel like playing I feel like, I guess I played a lot of Dreamcast as a kid. I feel like it'd be really fun to sit down and like play Dreamcast with people who are like famous athletes or people who played, or who played the sport, right? Like playing NFL 2K with Tom Brady. It's like, wow, like, bro, how crazy is this? The fact that this game came out when you were in the league and it didn't even create you. Like, that's how disrespectful they were to your career at the time. Or like, Vince Carter being like super overpowered, or even those players like you mentioned, that Antonio Davises or the Charles Oakleys of the world. I just think it's interesting to look back or reflect on those relics in time where you mentioned like looking back at the old school or the beginning of a person's career, you don't say, oh man, like how was it to, and that's what the Vogues do, right? Like Drake, like how was it to be in, to do God's Plan, or it's like, man, like how was it to do, your first
Best I ever
mixtape,
had or something,
right?
yeah.
Like just like thinking back to the original times, because then it can make people nostalgic to their origins, to their creation, right? Because it kind of gives you that throwing back to Rocky, in Rocky 5, when he goes back to, the abandoned place that used to be Mickey's gym, and he like sees the ghost of Mickey talking to him and looking back and retracing his steps it's such a powerful scene, even though people don't really regard the movie that highly. I think those things are kind of underrated because then it retraces the steps of the origin. And when you forget the origin, then it doesn't really give as much meaning to the present, like it doesn't give as much meaning to, oh, well, Drake, yeah, he lives in Park Circle Lane and lives in his big house, his mansion, does all these things. But it's like, where was Drake like being shot in the grass here? Where was Drake like before that, right? Like, and that's why when you dig into these interviews and what you've been so good at doing, it's what brings someone back, or it's what trips Cabby out, because you say, yo, like, what was it like when you did XYZ to propose to your wife? Like, because people sometimes they forget to stop and think about those moments, right? Because they're just so focused in the present, which is also good. I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's why I never take those long form interviews for granted. Because again, I was saying how, a lot of the bigger networks and stuff, they don't ask those questions because, well, you only have so much time with someone, right? And then and then if you're working for a big network, they have to like, you have to ask this and this, because it's like, to stay relevant to what's currently going on. But yeah, that's why I appreciate the long form format so much, because you get to actually sit down and have a proper conversation, as opposed to like, a sideline reporter type of interview where it's like, how did you feel about this? Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Okay, thank you. Have a nice, like,
yeah, like exactly. And that's a topic for a whole nother day, where you're trying to make those interesting when people have already become conditioned to hear questions where you're just answering the question for them and they just repeat what you just said and then just thanks, bye. But yeah, that's
That's why I was like, one of the greatest things and it's become somewhat of a meme. It's like, who was it that I forget her name, who asked OG what is like, what do you love about Texas?
Amy Audibert.
Amy Audibert. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I was watching that, I was like, that's so funny. And then I just thought it was hilarious. It was just a great question to ask because it was just so out there. And I was like, see, if I was like a sideline reporter for them, I'd be asking dumb shit like that. No, not saying it was a dumb question or anything, but like,
it's totally unexpected. Where compared to I thought you were going to bring up the Nick Saban clip where the female reporter she asks him the same question. He's like, I'm not going to answer that. So quit asking. Where she keeps badgering on the same point. Like, eventually they'll learn how to deflect, like the Brad Marchands, right? Like, what do you like about Texas? Oh, well, I don't know. I never thought about that. Like, you stump them because it's you're breaking the code of their brain programming to what they expect.
Yeah, and that's what, and I think that's why I've been having trouble getting like current Raptors to do interviews, because I think maybe Raptors PR is like, yo, man, he's gonna ask some like wild stuff. But I don't know. We'll see. Not again. Gotta keep grinding, and hopefully, I'll have the opportunity to.
Well, we'll stay posted on that, Ben. And we know that you won't be going anywhere anytime soon as far as it comes to Raptors content, because I'm expecting to see Scotty Barnes and you sit down and Zoom in the next 365 days and 5 hours and 50 minutes.
I put it out there. Oh, okay.
It's okay. This will be a highlight clip, but it'll push you towards actually getting it. So when you do,
no, honestly, I need
our
that
manifestation
push.
Was real.
Yeah, facts, 100%.
Ben, I've had such a great time chatting with you today, man. I really appreciate you being able to come on and us being able to just chop it up and have a great time, because that's why I like long form interviews. Yes, is someone going to sit here and watch all 1 hour? No, people won't do that to Joe Rogan, but it's super fun nonetheless. And you're such an interesting guy. And I'm really grateful that you're able to come on and chat with me in today's interview, man. It was super fun.
Hey, man, again, appreciate you for having me on, and you're killing it. 100 plus episodes in, keep grinding at this. And like, I've seen the guests that you've had on, like, it's great company to be in. And hey, man, keep grinding at this. You'll have your own Joe Rogan level show too.
Well, I'll take you up on that one as well, Ben. And with that, thank you to the listener for enjoying today's episode with Yahoo Sports content creator Ben Carlos.